This stage starts with easy holes, but then gets progressively rougher. And at the end, you have these large crater holes that were also filled with water because it had been raining pretty much every other day of that week. In my recce report, I pointed out the stage as what would be the turning point for the rally. I was not wrong. Are you ready? 5, 4, 3. Wow, welcome back to the channel. The Central Motor Club, CMC, as well as the COC Enokolinga, as well as the entire technical team, pulled up the second edition of their rally based in Northern Regional Capital of Gulu. The rally delivered for us spectators, for our hosts in Gulu, as well as for the competitors. Rally yabadde nyuma banai, rally yanyuma nnyo. In fact, this year rally is inyuma simanyi lwaki. You know, maybe because I'm the kaswa behind the camera. I don't know. Rally is inyuma nnyo. You know, but I can't decide yet which has been the best rally of the year so far. It wouldn't really be fair for me to pass judgment before the last round in Hoima next month. So let's wait and see. All I can say for now is that the rally was really fire. The rally was fast. Drivers reported hitting 200 kilometers per hour in the opening stage. This is probably the rally with the highest average speed of the season. So, you know, flat out. So roads were smooth. The terrain was mostly flat, that is flat savanna, you know, and with not a lot of trees, which is a recipe for flat out racing. Basically, you have a smooth road that is mostly flat, you know, even when, you know, the descents and ascents aren't that steep. And yeah, and then also the banks, you know, like the banks on the side of the road, they're not that high. So there's quite a margin in case you go off, you can still recover it, as you know what happened to Lwakataka 2 times. Well, at least he didn't roll the car. But before we get into it, 6 weeks ago in my gear-to-gear analysis of the Mountains of the Moon Rally, these were my final thoughts at the end of Fort Portal and leading into Gulu. Let's listen in. Amongst the anchors, Anchor Duncan was prolific, winning 4 stages out of 9. Even as he comes out with no points again, his pace is undeniable, and he should only fix the weaknesses in his car steering and suspension, which has cost him dearly on the last 2 events. Anko Posiano is enjoying his finest season. Winning now 4 out of 5 rounds is truly remarkable. His adversaries may have been unlucky, but so has he. In the old point scoring system, he would be needing to finish only 1 of the 2 remaining rounds to be crowned champion. Unfortunately, the current scoring system does not reward winning. Instead, it punishes not finishing. Meaning that all the victories count for little when you're up against Uncle Ronald, who doesn't put a foot wrong. Uncle Ronald's Proto, in my opinion, has the most power grant. I can visibly see it accelerating. Every time Lwakataka has won, Uncle Ronald Sebuguzi has come in second, and even when Lwakataka dropped out, Sebuguzi still managed second behind Duncan. In the current points award system, this championship will be decided by consistency. If Lwakataka continues to win, he will be champion. But if he fails to win one of the rounds, and Sebuguzi maintains second position on the 2 events, then Sebuguzi becomes champion. Neither feat is easier. Maintaining a victory run against Duncan Alui Mokula Jr. is going to be so hard. But it is just as hard to maintain second position against this class of drivers. In fact, when you add Musa Segawa in the mix, a spot on the podium requires one to be not only consistent, but rather consistently fast. The next round is not to be missed. Arrange your calendar bulungi and prepare to be in Gulu for Independence Weekend. Coming out of Fort portal, we had two main contenders for the championship. We had Ronald Seboguzi, who was leading, and Posiano Lwakataka, who has won 4 rallies this year. So, however, going into the last 2 rounds, like I said, these guys, Lwakataka would need to keep winning, and Seboguzi couldn't afford to drop below second. And clearly, Seboguzi listened. And yeah, so he came out guns blazing. Stage 1, winning the stage and beating Lwakataka by 13 seconds into 4th overall. Lwakataka was stunned, you know. He didn't expect that sort of performance from Seboguzi. At the same time, normally he would be second fastest, but you know, he was into 4th, and losing 13 seconds to Seboguzi every stage. Of course, he could see that by the end of day 1, he'd probably find himself like a minute off the lead. Wasn't acceptable. So Lwakataka went for broke, and he probably went too far in the second stage. His Impreza N12, dubbed Omusota, got stopped in his tracks when he hit a bank and broke the ball joint. So Lwakataka is normally very comfortable on the very edge of the limit. Okay, I trust, you know, there's one guy you can trust to go really flat out. But clearly he you know, I would say for the first time this year, went over the limit. The second stage, which was also the longest of rally, was not a piece of cake for any of, you know, for the other competitors. Musa Segawe and Matthias Chega, who drive an Evo 9, suffered a puncture and lost more than 11 minutes trying to change the wheel. Seboguzi Ronald and Anthony Mgambo were not spared either. Remember, they had won the first stage and were looking good. I don't know, you know, maybe they didn't see that Lwakataka was off the road because he was running ahead of them in the start order, which everybody thinks they would have seen them off the road, but probably they didn't. And, you know, right in front of my camera, these guys came and just spun their Ford Fiesta Proto. I think after that they released it because they didn't lose a lot of time, maybe 7-8 seconds in that. But by the end of the stage, they had lost 20 seconds to Hassan Alwi, who finished the stage in a time of 13:34. But they lost 24 seconds, give or take. The Evo 10 drivers, that is Ines Sodo and Daudi Umar, both of them were limping in the stage. And in the case of the latter, that is Daudi Umar, he was driving ahead. He was in the start order, he was ahead of Duncan Mubiru. And he ended up slowing Duncan. Duncan managed to finish the stage just 4 seconds off the pace of Alwi, but clearly there was a case for him to have his time adjusted. Two-wheel drive drivers, Sam Watendwa and Edward Chirimira, were also basically suffered issues and retired on this stage. Mansour Rega won the stage, as well as the opening one in the morning, and he was able to extend his lead to Julius Semambo by more than a minute by this time. So the afternoon was dedicated to the rally fans who were based in Gulu town and were not able to get out into the countryside. The track making up a super special stage and runs around the perimeter of the Gulu Peche Stadium, and basically it's just a series of, I think it's 4 donuts done in different formations. CRC drivers were testing action for the first time. The only rear-wheel drive car in the rally, that is a Toyota Altiza of Odion Nwagaba and Hussein Mokuye, was rotating very well around the donuts. And it basically showed more power than it has shown all year round. On the other hand, the Impreza N10 of Kevin Bebeto, which was also rotating, you know, very, very nicely, but it was also showing signs of hesitation, you know, especially on the exits of the donuts. The power, you know, you couldn't really feel the grunt of the power when he was exiting the donuts. No such issues for Walter Chibande and Duncan Katumba, who drive an older Subaru Impreza GC8. Or maybe it's because Walter does not leave the throttle alone for any period of time. The crowds loved him. Peter Kale, who drives a Subaru Impreza XV, put on a show very similar to that of Walter. And then Oscar and Tambi came in and just raised the bar, and the crowds just went wild. So the show kept on getting better as Daudi Umar pulled off an illegally level drift around, around the goal side of the stadium. So basically, you're looking at about a drift of nearly 50 meters, continuous, and it was just spectacular and beautiful to watch. Sabuguzi was also spectacular and quick as usual, but it was Duncan Mubiru and Hassan Ali who shared the spoils of the stage. So you have two stages. The stage was run twice, back to back. And the first time it was run, Hassan Ali Jr. won, Sabuguzi was second. And the second time, it was Duncan Mubiru who was fastest, and then again, Sabuguzi was second fastest. So basically, Sabuguzi, who's a master of super special stages, didn't win any of the runs of super special. So by the end of the day, after adjustment over Duncan Mubiru's stage time, as in stage 2, Duncan and Kamia were leading with a slim margin of Hassan Ali Jr. Ronald Sabuguzi and Anthony Mugamba were another 9 seconds. And then it was Peter Kalule in 4th, Oscar Ntambi in 5th, and Aine Sodo in 6th, but just 3 seconds behind Oscar. Posino Lwakataka and Musazi restarted day 2 with a penalty of 20 minutes, and they were sitting in 16th overall. They needed to move up places if they were to score, some good points for the championship. But realistically, they were never going to do it on performance alone. Still, they tried. And at first, it looked like it was working. Day 1, stage 4, okay, which was a repeat of stage 1 on day 1, where I think Sabuguzi had won the stage in a time of 7 minutes and 16 seconds. Lwakataka managed to do it in 7:01, quicker than anybody else in the repeat. The time was massive, but it only managed to get him closer. So he was still in 16th and a little bit closer to the guys who were the two drivers who were occupying positions from about 10th to 15th. But he did not pass anyone. So Hassan Alwi also and Musa Nsubuga started the day with a good prospect of taking the lead from Duncan Mubiru. However, all this evaporated when they suffered a puncture, and just like Musa Segawe and Chiega somehow were unprepared for this, they didn't know how to change a tire. They also lost more than 10 minutes trying to change that tire. And this dropped them to 12 behind Francis Omo. And basically, Ronald Sabuguzi took their place in second behind the rally leaders. That is Duncan, who kept the lead. Aine Sodo, who's navigated by Asmani Mohammed, set a 5th fastest stage time on the stage, which was enough to dislodge not only Oscar Ntambi, but also Peter Kalule and move him into 3rd overall. On stage 5, Lwakataka did not win the stage, but he was then able to move into 15th overall. And on stage 6, he put in a mega performance, which won the stage, but not only won him the stage, but also moved him into 12th overall. He was basically looking, he needed to move another, maybe 3 places to score some points in the championship. But elsewhere, Musa Segawe, who had started the day in 12th, remember he had also had a puncture in day 1. He was now up to 8th overall, while Hassan Ali Jr., who had dropped from 12th, was now up to 9th overall. Stage 7 was very different compared to the rest of the stages of the rally. So unlike the rest of the stages, it was very smooth and flat out. This stage starts with easy holes, but then gets progressively rougher. And at the end, you have these large crater holes that were also filled with water because it had been raining pretty much every other day of that week. In my record report, I pointed out the stage as what would be the turning point for the rally. I was not wrong. However, this stage was also honestly Lwakataka's best chance at really making a difference. This was a stage in which somebody who was driving cautiously could lose as much as maybe half a minute, maybe even a minute if they made a mistake. And if there's one driver who's comfortable tackling challenging stages, it is Ponciano Lwakataka. Unfortunately, it was not to be, as again He basically went a little bit over the limit, hit the bank, and broke the ball joint again. And this time there will be no rejoining. It was rally over and basically a disaster. Proper disaster this time for him. So going into the pass stage, Duncan led Sebuguzi by just over a minute. And Aine Sodo was still sitting in third, but a good distance behind Sebuguzi, but also quite big margin ahead of Peter Kalule and Oscar Ntambi, who had been going toe-to-toe. And now they were going into the pass stage, separated by just 1 second. Alwi Jr. and Musa Nsubuga took the pass stage win, and with that were able to move up into 6th overall, ahead of both Haruna Kataza and Isaac Sozi. Musa Segawe also took the highest power stage jump, which is the same thing that he did last year, but his stage time was also good enough to move him ahead of both Kataza and Sozi, so he managed to then finish in 7th overall. Sam Watendwa took the power stage win for the two-wheel drive category, but he remained 5th and last in his class. Mansour Rebega was untroubled in the lead all rally along, and Julius Semambo, who was in 2nd, finished the rally, but with what sounded like a dead engine. So provisionally, Julius Semambo had finished 2nd overall, but later on the stewards were able to disqualify him because he came to the finish of, being told. Amir Kavuma finished 3rd, so which is 2nd in class, while Shiromira had finished 4th, but ultimately 3rd in class. In the CRC, Kevin Bebeto's bonnet opened soon after the start of the morning's first stage. They would drive with it open, which is, spectacular as well. However, the engine of their N10 overheated, and they retired at the end of that is stage 4. In contrasting fortunes, Walter Chibande would enjoy a perfect run through the stages of day 2, as he had done in stage 1. So winning CRC from Ahmed Katete in 2nd, Odion Nwagaba in 3rd, and Dennis Bahiz in 4th. My final thoughts. So Duncan Mubiru and Joseph Kamia's pace in the Ford Fiesta Proto, which has been undeniable all season, has delivered another victory after their first one at the Pearl of Africa Rally in May. Hassan Alwi Jr. and Musa Nsubuga also have the bins, in their similar car, but are perhaps still discovering some of the, secrets to unlocking the ultimate power that will have him, fight for victory. Ronald Sebuguzi and Anthony Mugamba have all but clinched what will be Sebuguzi's 4th National Rally Championship, as well as Anthony Mugamba's 2nd. With a lead of 59 points over their biggest rival, that is Ponciano Lwakataka, they will need just 7 points from the next rally, which is the final round in Hoima, to be assured of it, basically to win the title. On the other hand, Lwakataka needs to win. He needs to win the rally, not just win the rally, but also take power stage points. And that's if Sebuguzi doesn't finish or doesn't score any points. On paper, however, the closest, basically the people who are 2nd in championship are Musa Segawe and Matthias Chega in their April 9, and they're just 54 points behind Sebuguzi and Mugamba. However, even they would have to win the rally and take some power stage points in case Sebuguzi doesn't finish the rally. If he finishes the rally and finishes basically within the top 10, no one can beat him to the title. However, it's not over until the fat lady sings.